And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Let's Talk series, where I share conversations with those who support families navigate their international life successfully. Now, today, I'm very happy to have Maritere Bellas as my guest today. Mary has become one of my partners in multilingualism in the last years, and also multiculturalism, as I understood, because we both work also with families who have diverse cultural background. Now, Mary is an award-winning author, bilingual parenting expert, and a mentor, a speaker, a podcast host. She has regular IG lives, so have a look at her Instagram account, and she's much, much, much more. I invite you to really have a look at her blog, also mariterebellas.com. Fact is that she brings a wealth of knowledge and personal experience to the table. Before we now discuss today's topic, which is raising multicultural children, so not only multilingual, but also multicultural children, if you follow us live here, please share your questions in the comments so that we can answer them. But to you now, Mary, can you please share what made you focus on bilingualism, on multilingualism, and and multiculturalism?
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with your community. We've been planning this for a while now, so I'm glad that is happening. I grew up bilingual and bicultural. At 18, I had the opportunity to be exposed to a third language and to many different cultures, and I was hooked. I was in awe of being able to communicate and have conversations in English, Spanish, and French. And I felt so grateful to meet people from all over the world, other countries like India, Greece, Turkey, Iran, France, Switzerland, for example. Then I married a Greek American, and we knew we wanted to raise our children at least bilingual and multicultural. But we had little, if any, resources at the time. So I became that resource to immigrant parents and have been in this journey for over 2 decades now. Started with the weekly newspaper, magazine articles, blog posts, and then my books. So this month, it's my 10th year anniversary of the first book that was published, Raising Bilingual Children, Cómo Criar Niños Bilingües. You see it up there in the slide. It's an ebook that was published in 2014 by Simon & Schuster. Super grateful. And then after that, Arroz con Pollo and Apple Pie, Raising Bicultural Children. And then in 2018, I wrote my first bilingual children's book, Luisito's Island, La Isla de Luisito. And in 2020, I have a secret, Tengo un secreto. That book is going to be 4 years old this November. And I just heard from the publisher that they are going to release a hardcover edition. So I'm super excited. This is the first I announced, so I'm happy to do it with your community. And then I have translated a couple of books in Spanish, one for toddlers, some words. It's called 100 primeras palabras, 100 primeras palabras para niños pequeños, and Soy Única, which is a book that was written by Jennifer Bazell, and it's called I Am Unique. And that's about 5 years ago. I started a podcast in Espanol, and it's for parents, Latino parents all over the world that are raising bilingual, multilingual, multicultural children and want to preserve the language and the culture.
That's so much. It's really, every time I think about something, Mari has done it or is doing it. So it's really very impressive what you're doing. I would like to welcome everyone who's following us. And we have someone on LinkedIn, Franklin Cabdenas. He says, many thanks for organizing this interesting event. I'm happy that you're here. Please let us know if you have any questions as we go through the different topics that we decided to focus on today. So now, not everyone who becomes a bi or multilingual is automatically also bi or multicultural. Because adjusting to the new country as an immigrant, an expat, a refugee requires time and comes with many challenges. We all know that. And you experienced it, I experienced it, my parents experienced it, and maybe my children will experience it as well. There are 4 or 5 or more adjustment phases, depending on who we are following, to change and to talk about in your book, Arroz con Pollo and Apple Pie, Raising Bicultural Children. Now, can you please tell us a little bit more about this, what this means to adjust, and what you actually also explain in your book? I will fill in some things that I do as well, as I'm an interculturalist as well. So
I love this question. Adjustment is a process everyone goes through, as you know, when moving to a new country, away from everything and everyone that we know, pretty much leaving everything behind and starting over. I call it the stages of adjustment, and this can happen when we first move or after we have been in the country for a long time. In many ways, the stages are similar to the grieving process. And in my book, I mentioned confusion and denial. In this stage, we deny the emotional hardships we're experiencing, for example. Excuse me. Deep inside, we try to convince ourselves that we made the right choice by being in the new country, but feel confused by our emotions. Then we have disappointment and anger. In this stage, we realize the obstacles that we face, perhaps language barriers, the lack of job opportunities, the lack of confidence that can lead to vulnerability, frustrations, and that can lead to resentment. And then we're in the resentment stage. This is when we're in survival mode. We tell ourselves that we can have to make this transition work and fast. We do whatever it takes to reach our goals, but this can lead to comparisons and envy, those that we think are not struggling as hard. But then again, we don't know their stories, so it's difficult. And then we finally perhaps get to the acceptance stage. And finally is when we accept our new country with all its benefits and its flaws. I want to say that I stated in my book, it is important for the adults to adjust so they can help their kids adjust. Oftentimes we move and our kids are old enough, and it's important that they become part of that conversation and that process. We need to remember that their lives are going to be upside down too. And according to their maturity level, we can have simple conversations and prepare them.
absolutely, I cannot agree more. And especially the preparation, right? So there are always different, and we are going to talk about this in a moment, different reasons for people to leave the country or to move to another country. So not everyone has a lot of time to prepare themselves and to prepare also the children. I mean, there are all the administration things that needs to be sorted out. Where to live in what city or what neighborhood, what school to choose for the children, etc. And sometimes we even don't have the time to visit before moving there, right? So we move and we have no idea what we signed up for. So I hope it's okay if I just quickly just share a curve that I like to do, because I like this visualization of a curve, because it really seems like a roller coaster ride, right? So you start and you're all enthusiastic because everything that is new, you think or you hope, of course, because this is also one reason why we move to another country, because we hope that the life there is better than where we are, or more exciting for whatever reason, right? In all kind of domains of life. But then there comes a disappointment, and we start maybe to question our decision even. And some of them, of those who immigrate, think, I would like to go back. And what you mentioned as well is, the resentment, the depression period, or the shock, the culture shock. You mentioned it also in your book, which I have here, because you share a lot of stories from individuals from different families. And there are some who also mention that they had this culture shock, that they realized things are completely different from what they are used to. And then comes, like you said, this exploration phase, or the phase where you try to make sense of everything that is new, and you find yourself somehow. But I find also important, you mentioned just now, we need to prepare our children. Um, and what I find always very complicated for families is to realize every single family member goes through these phases at their very own pace. And
Mhm.
it's not linear. So maybe you are complete denial, and then you say, oh, it's so easy, it's so nice. And you just skip the other phases and you just thrive immediately in one domain of life. And in other domain of life, you have really a hard time. And the same goes for our children. So we never know exactly where they are. Maybe at home they're fine, and we assume that they are fine also at school or with their friends or with accepting the new language, the new food, the new climate, anything that has to do with that. But maybe they don't, right? So I find it very important what you emphasize to focus on the children, because they need a little bit of guidance, but also on maybe our partner or ourselves. So it's a little bit also of self care, right? Because we can help our children best if we know what we are doing and what might come next. We are the adults, but yeah,
I
that,
agree with you. And yeah, in fact, I did a whole chapter in the book. I called it Bicultural Blues for the kids. And in that chapter, I interviewed a family therapist and a psychologist that share the importance of really making children part of the whole and not kind of throw them in like, oh, they're going to be okay, because they're not. We kind of like, they are leaving friends behind, their school, maybe it was their favorite teacher, people that they love, and to start over, and perhaps starting over not knowing the language. And so, and there are times, like, there's stories in the book where parents are so busy with one or two jobs that they forget to check in on the kids. And so it's really important to really be aware and prepare them and make them part of the whole conversation, and understand that it's hard for them. And at the end of the day, we should all, talk about how was your day, and what was good and what was not so good, and try to keep that communication going, so they come to you
mhm.
instead of going to maybe get involved with the wrong crowd, or go in a different path that you don't want them to, or confide in someone that they shouldn't be confiding in. So you know it's it's all part of parenting. It's just another layer that we're adding to our parenting, right?
Absolutely. Yes, it's another layer. And I would say also another facet, because somehow, yes, we know how we grew up, and maybe we grew up also abroad. I grew up abroad, but still raising my children in another abroad, in another kind of context, is again, you're not the child anymore, you're then the parent. So you see it from the different angle, and you have also these fears of, oh, I hope that what happened to me will not happen to my children. So you have all this baggage and all these
Mhm.
expectations. And as we were talking about parenting, what I liked in your book as well, you always said, because you focus, I think, mainly on immigrants, or those who move to the United States. So you have these two cultures that can clash to some extent, but then they can also complete each other. So I like this kind of, I see it like a salad, right? A very colorful salad, where you try to mix and you say, okay, I put a little bit of tomato, I put this one, and you make out a beautiful dish, because you want to thrive abroad. You don't want to feel miserable, right? Um, but what I also find very interesting is the different parenting styles that can clash. So I maybe have a parenting style that is completely different from what my children experience at their friend's house.
Mhm.
And that is also a bit a challenge for the family, and then also for the family to relate to the neighbors, to the new community they are in, etc. Oh, I see a comment by Franklin. Thank you very much. I agree with you. The parents have to accept the new country and the new culture. That is very important,
Mhm.
so that the kids are happy with both environments and both cultures. I think it's really this happiness or even contentness, maybe, or the way, because our children follow what we do. They follow our lead. If we say, I don't like the language or I
Mhm.
don't like that food, right? It's affecting them.
Yeah, it's really interesting that that comment. I appreciate it because when I started talking to parents, there was a lot of negativity, and I truly believe that our attitude as parents have to be we have to have positive attitude. And we made this move for whatever our reason was. Maybe it was a job opportunity, maybe we want the American dream, or whatever the reason was. Maybe there's civil unrest or things happening in our own country, and we just want a better life for our kids. There's many different reasons. And so you're here, then I think we should try to make the best of it and not criticize the new country that we're in, the new environment, the culture. When I started writing this book, I had this idea that I was going to, one of the chapters was going to be, the disciplining, the different ways of disciplining. And I thought, I'm going to compare the values, the American values versus the Latino Hispanic values. And I realized while I was writing the book that the values are the same. It's the way we interpret the values that is different. And that's okay. I have no reason to be judging you for the way you're parenting, and you have no reason to judge me. I think we all can coexist and live, happily. And I think what tends to happen from my conversations even today is, and this is what my husband and I did, we took the best of both and we made our own set of rules and our own way by using the way we had grown up and we grew up, and then what we were seeing around us that we thought, oh, well, I like it. I like that the children can have a say. I didn't grow up saying, it was what my parents say and that was that. So, but we didn't. We wanted our kids to be, independent thinkers and to have a voice, even if the answer was still no. They could at least talk about and expose or tell us what their views were. And so it's a really interesting process. And I always remind parents, don't criticize. You're there, you wanted to be there. Let's just, and also keep in mind that some of these children are born in this new country. So we can't be walking around criticizing the country that they were born in. So, it's all those different things that we have to keep in mind. Always, it always goes back to the kids and being the best example we can be and have the best attitude we can have.
Yeah, that's absolutely, yeah. I completely agree. And with finding your own rules and your own values in the nucleus of your little family, because you don't have the extended usually you don't have the extended family around you. Makes me remember of my mother. She always said it was nice to move to another place and then have you abroad. So I could just, it was like having a blank page that I could write on. So I could
Mhm.
actually decide what I want to put there and what not. So with the food, she decided which dishes she wanted to take from Germany and which not. And with regards to everything, actually, that she wanted to have her own family in her own way, and she wouldn't have her cousins, aunts, uncles, parents tell her anything that she was doing something wrong. Maybe they did when we visited during the holidays, but it was, you can just put it aside. You say, okay, this is just this week, and then I go back to my normal. So I would like to share again with Franklin. Thank you very much for help for following us so closely. He says, "My wife comes from Russia and I come from Venezuela. We are living in Germany, so a nice combination. Here in Germany, there is a big Russian community. This is good for the kids to learn the Russian language, but this community is keeping close, and other families don't have an open contact to the German people. I completely, this is like the bubble. We call it the expat bubble or the bubble from a certain culture, right? This bubble existence is not healthy at all. I experienced it when I was a child with some of the other friends of ours. They would not really learn the local language, so they didn't learn Italian. They would even drive back to Germany, which was like 1,000 kilometers or something. It's not much for the US, I know, but still for Europe, yes. If you have the Alps in the middle, it's quite something to get bread and all kind of products that they couldn't find in Italy at that time. Now it's different, but that's very difficult to raise children in that kind of context, because then you feel like you are in suspense, you are in between and never really in the country, right?
Yeah, just try to find your own group. I always tell parents there have to be someone else like you, Frankie, that feel the same way, and maybe start with another family and just start your own little group. And I saw this too. My husband's parents came from Greece, the grandparents, and I met one of his grandmothers, and she never learned English. She came to this country at 21, and I think she lived up to 90, I think, or something like that, and knew certain words here and there, but the whole family always communicated with her in Greek. And it was that generation, so I'm surprised to see it that it still happens. But it's all part of trying to find community. So they all kind of tend to gravitate to all the Greeks or the Italians, the way it was, even before you and I, the generations before us. So though you're younger than me, but anyway, it's just interesting to see how it works, and it happens in the United States too. So I don't think Europe is the exception at all.
No, no, I don't think it's an exception. I think it's more a question of a mindset, right? If you are convinced and if you are in the right mindset to make it work, no matter what, and not to grieve too long. You mentioned grieving. I think some of the people who are stuck in this bubble are grieving too long,
Mm-hmm.
something that they left behind, and then they feel also miserable because every time you go home, I don't know if you noticed it, I noticed it after 3 years. So I said, okay, now everything has changed. Nothing is like it was before. So you move on. So
Right.
okay, that's very normal for life, right? Even if you stay in that place. I would like to just share with Francis is here with us, jumping a bit late, no worries. So happy to see the two of my favorite peeps having this
Oh,
important convo. Thank you very
she's
much,
one of my
Francis.
favorites too. I love her so much. She's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, and very active also about something that we're going to talk about in a moment. And
Well,
we have
you know
also,
what? I talk about her all the time because oftentimes, Frances, and I don't know if I've told you this publicly, but even 2 days ago, I posted something, and there was a mom that made a comment saying, "Oh my God, I haven't even started. My kids are 5, 8, and 10. Is it too late?" And I'm always mentioning, Frances, no, it's not too late, and I'm going to send you to the right person to help you out.
perfect, perfect.
Anyway,
Yes, and we have also
hi,
Yoshito
Yoshika.
with us. I really like what you are both saying about parenting. It can be very enlightening to see what people do in the country we move to. Exactly. It gives us the chance to see that there isn't just one way to do things. Absolutely, but we need to say open-minded. The open-minded, exactly. We
Yes.
think alike, Yoshito. I think. Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. That's something to keep in mind. And Francis, again, I know it's hard, but what has worked for me is to get out of my comfort zone. comfort zone is another of these keywords, right? And approach people who will help with my son's Spanish language learning. Absolutely. That's absolutely important to know. And I think you're going to share about this, right, in a moment. But can you maybe, before we go where Francis was directing us now, can you maybe share an overview of the immigration profiles that of Latino families in
Um,
the US? Because I mean, we have these situations a bit overall in the whole world, but I would like you to share about this, and I'll
yes, I
share.
had to look this up because I wanted to be right. I think I mentioned that to you. Gender, about half of Hispanic undocumented immigrants are female and half are male. And marriage status, about half of Hispanic undocumented immigrants are unmarried, 45% are married with a spouse present, and 5% are married with a spouse present. They have been here, about half been living in the United States for at least 15 years or more. Our age group, generally younger than the US born population. And our income, Hispanic immigrants are more likely to have lower incomes than other immigrant groups. And about quarter of recent Latino immigrants are proficient in English, but there are notable differences by origin group. So it kind of depends on what country, Spanish-speaking country you come from. The largest Latino immigrant population are in California, Texas, and Florida. And like we discussed earlier, our reasons to be here vary, and it could be greater economic prosperity to stability, jobs. We want a better life for our kids, etc. Um, so I think that's what you asked me, right?
Yes, that was to have an overview of who the people are, yeah, where they coming from, and for what reason. Also, like you share on this slide, right? The general characteristics, the gender, you mentioned the gender, the marriage status, the length of it, and the motivations, the location as well. So, because to be honest, when I hear about the immigrants, or very often when you hear the immigrants in the US, very often people refer also with reference to the second language that the people are learning. It's mainly English and Spanish, right? And you have a lot of studies about English and Spanish in the US, or how to learn Spanish or how to maintain Spanish if you are in the US. There are other regions in the US. I'm not going to talk about that because we can find it out in another way, and it's not the place now. But there are other regions where there are more Germans, for example, more French people, or more people from a lot of other countries, and Chinese, and wherever in the world. So it is not only Spanish, but it's the majority. It's the part that is quoted and analyzed the most. Interestingly, which I don't find it a problem, but I find it interesting also to, or important in this context, to say it's not the only one, right? There are others as well.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of, dual language schools in the United States that offer different languages in addition to Spanish. There's Mandarin, it's very popular, and French as well. So there are other languages. And, interestingly enough, when my husband was growing up in Ohio, in high school at the time, it wasn't Spanish that they had as an elective, but it was German. So he knows some words in German that I never learned. So I thought that was kind of
It's
interesting.
interesting. Yes. Yes, I heard this also from some friends from the United States who said they learned other languages than Spanish, and I was like, yeah, it's a little bit another view that you have when you see the realistic situations there. So I would like to ask you now that to share maybe some of the tips, right, on how to balance two or more cultures, because this is also something that we both try to do, or maybe three cultures. We have here three, four cultures that we try to somehow juggle. But how can we help our children and also ourselves actually to maintain our heritage culture and language, every time I say culture, I also imply language, because language is part
Mhm.
of the culture and culture is part of the language. So maybe we can here also have your slide again, if you can
Yeah.
explain.
So preserving cultural heritage and fostering cultural identity should be intentional and something we want to share with our kids. I always tell parents that I'm not the first person that says so. In order to know where we are going, we have to know where we came from. Finding common ground, accepting, learning about the new culture is very important. Successful parenting means balancing the new with the old, achieving cultural integration, adapting to positive aspects of the new culture, while at the same time encouraging your child's sense of cultural pride. um, Parenting in the new culture, we, like I mentioned, we have to be intentional and create opportunities for exposure. In my home, we had Greek days, Puerto Rican days, and American days, and that included the food, the music, the books, the phone conversation with grandparents. We didn't have technology like, FaceTiming or Zooming like you all have today. And then finding cultural activities in your own town near you that celebrate the culture and add that to the family calendar, and do the same for cultural activities that teach the family about the new culture. Because it's important to show the kids, like we said before, that we appreciate where we live now. um, we should put our children's happiness first, their adjustment, their education, have an open communication with the kids about their feelings as they adjust. Children need to know that you understand how hard it is for them and that you are there to support and love them and help them. Family meetings are great, or maybe at family dinner, everyone shares a good and not so good experience that day. We need to have a positive attitude. Attitude is everything. The kids will follow your lead. If we complain about our new life, our community, they're going to do the same. So we don't want that. We don't want this negativity inside the home. Ask for help. We all learn from others. Meet other parents. Listen, learn, educate yourselves. Find community online and offline. Maybe there's an online community that you can join of parents from your same country that have moved to the same area where you are, or find a group in the local library or your place of worship. We need to stop comparing ourselves. We need to trust our instincts, and we need to be kind to yourself and to our kids. It's a process, and it's not going to happen in one day. It might take years, it might take months, but we just need to accept it and move forward instead of always looking back. That's my best advice.
Yes, absolutely. That was a long list of great advice, I must say. I'm very happy that you could share all of them. And I see also there are some comments coming in. Let me just quickly quote. Here we have Michel Glorieux. Hello. Love these suggestions, especially adding to family calendar, attitude, dedicated days. Exactly. So having certain days where you dive into one of the cultures and you really enjoy it all as a family. This is something that I find very important. Also with regards to the languages, right? That we have in our family, so that not only we celebrate and we are proud of the culture, but we are also proud of the language. And sometimes you can see this in mixed marriages, or yes, mixed cultural marriages, or partnerships, that one of the cultures is a little bit suppressed,
Mm-hmm.
and that is actually not so healthy, for not for the partners and not for the children at all. So this is something that I find important also for those that maybe move to the country where their spouse or their partner is living, even before having children, to be very careful about how is your partner or your future partner maybe going to react to your culture and your language. Are they supportive? Are they understanding? Because that will be otherwise very, very difficult afterwards.
It's, yeah, I agree 100% with you. And also want to say that it's important to have these conversations before you get there. And everyone in your child's circle that is going to, so let's say you're going to where your husband's family is, and that family doesn't, in, let's say, doesn't speak Spanish. It's important for me, it should be important for me as a parent for to have a conversation with them and talk to them about, I'm going to be talking to my kids in Spanish. I want them to learn the language, and I need you not to feel offended if I'm talking to them in Spanish in front of them. I need you to support that I want them to continue with their Spanish. So, I mean, those are, conversations that should happen, need to happen. And because you as a parent, you need that support. I was the only Spanish input in it, and my husband didn't have family in California either. So, I didn't have that experience, but my in-laws, when they would come visit, they knew that I was talking to my kids in Spanish, and they were okay with that because they were supportive of the languages. I wish we had the opportunity to also learn, teach them Greek, but it was just so much, like I couldn't do it all, and we were using our instincts half the time because I had no resources. So but anyway, it's just it's really important that we remember that, those conversations should happen from the beginning, and you need that support, and those in-laws need to respect and support what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I think when we talk about community, the extended family is included. It's the first circle around us, right? The little island that we are doing, that we are forming. Thank you very much, Francis. It's Ute being proud of both languages and culture. And you also, I would like to quote also when she says about what you just said, Maritere. Great tips, Maritere. Thankfully, hubby, monolingual, has always been supportive in raising our son bilingually and multiculturally, balancing both our son's Latino culture and American Southern culture. Our son is now a bilingual 16-year-old, proud of both heritage and culture. And that's a pat on your both backs, so Francis and your husband. I know it is not easy because, as we mentioned before, especially if you both live in another country, there can be some attrition. There can be some power struggles, like, okay, your parenting style or your kind of doing things, thinking things, even expressing things is maybe something different than I expect. But that's part of life, anyways. But I think the most important thing for me has always been talk about it. Don't put it aside and hope that it goes away. It will not. It might be growing even bigger as a problem and then hit you when you don't expect it. So, what you said, talk about this from the beginning. And then I would even say regularly, every now and then, when you see something is not so clearly said or clearly agreed on, right?
And by the way, in addition to the in-laws and relatives, the people in the child's circle, teachers, neighbors, they all need to know that this is what you're doing in your house, that you're raising these children with these languages and these cultures. And because you don't want the kids to go out and start talking to German in between them, and other kids kind of look at them with bad eyes, or rolling their eyes, or you are in France, you need to speak French, kind of thing. So it's important that everyone knows, and especially at school, I think, and it, interestingly, I think that I always tell parents these days that regardless of where they are, they're raising multicultural children, because even in the United States, this child is going to go to a school where there's children from different cultures, and what we want is for them to appreciate these cultures and respect these cultures and learn about them. And that's how we kind of raise compassionate and empathetic children and respectful children. So it's our world is so rich in cultures that we want to share all of that with our kids, and we want them to be respectful of everyone.
Yes. respectful and understanding. And then maybe when we talk about being proud of the own culture, it's always something that affects me a little bit because I haven't been proud always about my heritage culture. But I think it's very important to also see how we can be proud. We can be proud by cooking the dishes. We can the typical dishes. Um, we can be proud by celebrating something. We can be proud by using the language and fostering the language, reading the books and exploring the culture through books if we cannot visit the country very often. Or something that was very good for me was to find my little hero, the German hero, or someone, a figure, a public figure as a role model, not as a role model. We also have role models. But I remember one day when I was driving to a celebration with one of my uncles. Usually we wouldn't spend time together alone in a car, but he switched on the radio and there were German songs and there was a but Grönemeyer was singing. Those who are my age will, will remember him. And maybe say, oh, yes, I like him as well. And he was talking about the power of children. He was singing a song about that. And this, I still remember it. And then I started listening to other songs from this singer. And that opened for me a new gate towards the culture. And then there was a comic figure that is Otto Walkes that I experienced during the holidays. And that was another kind of thing. It's like puzzles from the culture that you put together and you make your own picture of it. That might not be the one of your peers in the country. It might not even be the one of your sibling, but it's your very own thing that you are proud of or that you form somehow.
I had the same experience with my kids, and my kids grew up going to Puerto Rico every summer for like 12 years in a row. So they grew up with cousins and with the food over there and the sounds and the noise and all that stuff that comes with being in the Latin and the Latin house, Latino house. But when my son was about eight, and my daughter was about 5. Ricky Martin, who is a pretty, Francis knows, a pretty famous celebrity, well, worldwide, really. But he came to LA and I really wanted to see him in concert. So I told my husband, we are all going. I want them to see, because, the music is so fun and this is, an opportunity to expose them away from being in Puerto Rico, but here. So we went, and I have to tell you, that was amazing, because the kids were so proud and so excited and learn all the songs. And so all those little things can help a child, instill their pride. And I also want to mention this because it's important that, we as parents that grew up in a different culture, it's important for us to understand that our children that are not growing up where we grew up, in our own culture, they're going to love our culture, but they're not going to love it like we love it. And we need to accept that and kind of lower our expectation and not expect, but continue to expose them and talk to them about it. But, keep in mind that it's not going to be the same, and that's okay. As long as they love it, that's what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and for me, it was also another culture. So it's not my heritage culture that I want my children to embrace. It's Italian culture, but giving them a little bit of a flavor of it, it's already something. And then at some point, like with the language, at some point they will decide themselves, I want to improve my fluency in, you fill in the blank.
Right.
So I like one comment from, I would like to quote one comment from Michelle Glorieux. Agreed, I recently, as American, asked British English teacher to respect my son's American ways. Yeah, not out of disrespect, but for him to feel pride Very good. For who he is, absolutely. I could see me sharing that with her made all the difference, absolutely. And I
Mhm.
think we just, thank you very much for the hint, Michelle, because I was thinking about this when we were talking with Maritere. Um, what we want to have at home, or what we are having at home, needs to be also a little bit transparent for the teachers or everyone else who works or who spends time with our children. So the teachers very often, what they see is the form that we filled in. Okay, coming from Puerto Rico, coming from, I don't know, Varese in Italy or whatever, and they assume this is what is happening at home, but they have no idea what it means. And so it is important for us also to let teachers know what the struggles sometimes are,
Mhm.
right? If we, for example, when maybe at history, during history lessons, they are talking about our country, and our children come home and feel like a little bit, yeah, sad about what everything that happened, so that we can have this conversation and that they are much more aware that it's not only the culture, the language, but it's also the feeling, and that we want to foster this pride. I think the pride is really an important aspect in
Mhm.
this, because with the pride comes the motivation, and with the motivation, everything else falls into place. Because if we are motivated, everything is easier, right? We have this drive, this inner drive to step out of the comfort zone, like Francis said
Francis.
before.
Yeah.
It makes it much easier, because it's complicated enough.
We have to be intentional. We have to be intentional and have a good attitude about it, and get out of our comfort zone, and just, show our kids. Another thing that I wanted to mention in regards to language is, us as adults and parents that are living in a new country that maybe we don't speak the language. What about trying to learn the language at the same time? Because that kind of gives our children a role model. Like, well, if mommy is trying to learn German, then I want to continue learning Spanish. It's like a motivation, like you were talking about. So, we need to be willing to do that and to learn something new. And again, go back to Francis, get out of our comfort zone, and at least, try to learn a few words, try to communicate at the store when we go get, groceries or whatever. That, just doing that part is very important for the children to see.
Yes, absolutely. And here is a comment from Franklin about exactly this. Yes, thanks for the. I try to talk as much as possible with them in Spanish, but I have also learned Russian and German as well. So, we are all in the same boat, and we are all committed to this to make us just work the best for everyone. So, why only the children learning additional languages? It's up to us as well. And when they see that someone so Asian, I had my friend once said, "You're so ancient and you are learning," I said, "Yeah, children."
Let's get them
But
involved. I mean, kids love to be teachers, so get them involved.
absolutely,
What about sitting down every day after dinner and teach me some words? Let's do
yes,
some flashcards and teach
that's
me some words. I mean, the kids love that.
absolutely, yeah. That's what I did. And my son was 2.5 years old, and he was so, you could see in his eyes, they were huge, telling me how to pronounce the words and how to sing that song properly, because otherwise I sound a bit strange
Yeah,
or
well,
maybe
listen,
embarrassing. So
listen.
that's
My kids are in their 30s and they're so correct in my English. So
all my children as well. They are also adult, not as the same age group as yours, but my son is now 21, but he likes to tell me as well, and I'm happy actually.
yeah, me
I think
too.
it also
I don't
has to do
mind.
with the fact to accept also a child to teach you, because they teach us anyways in so many levels. And again, Franklin also said, thank you very much for all the comments that you're sharing. I don't know if I can quote them all, but we have to avoid the competition between the cultures that the kids are in contact with. This is the feedback from my old daughter. So very wise and
It's
very, very
yes,
good.
yes, they're all important, and there's no reason why you give one culture. And we also have to remember that outside the door, they're getting the community and that society culture. So inside it's okay to kind of use the other two cultures a little bit more, because when we all go outside as a family, we're all immersed in that one culture. So, but there's no reason why Spanish is more important than Russian or more important than French. We all try to find a place for all of them. And there's a method now that has become very popular for multilingual parents raising multilingual, is the time and place method. And we can use that method any way we want to, 3 times a week or once every day, or every weekend. We choose the time and the place, and the whole family, everything revolves around that language. And that's enough. I mean, as long as we give it that importance in our daily routine or our weekly routine, that should be okay. So it can be done. It's not easy, but all your parents today have so many more resources, so many communities that are so supportive. I see the communities, the talks, and it oftentimes is the same concern. Is my child going to be confused with all the languages, or this teacher said this about the speech, or it
Yeah, and
it's so interesting. And we just have to support each other, and don't be afraid to reach out to the experts, like you and Yoshito and
and
Francis.
you.
Well, sure. But because we're here to support you and to tell you that it can be done, and you just have to you have to be intentional, you have to be consistent, but you have to be flexible, and you have to kind of lower your expectations and understand that this is a process and it's not a marathon. No one's going to give you a medal at the end of the day. You don't have to rush over. It's going to be, and some days it's going to be better than other days, but guess what? Every day you can celebrate whatever effort, whatever win, even if it's that little thing where your child walks in the house and starts talking to you in Spanish right away. You're like, oh my God, and you like smile and celebrate that. So, we just have
Yes,
to kind of be kind to ourselves and be kind to our kids, because they're
yeah,
trying too.
absolutely. Yes. And as we both work with, talk about cultures and languages, what I always find very interesting to observe is that no one would ever tell you to not live your culture wherever you are, to not cook your dishes, to not, do things the way that you do in your culture. But they have something to say about the language that you're using. So if someone would now approach all this from a cultural part, every problem would just fall away, and it's not that difficult, or it's not even something to question or to discuss, right? You do it and you try to get all the support that you can. But I'm very aware of the time passing. This is a very special month in the US, as you are celebrating the Hispanic Latinx, sorry, Heritage Month. And this is where I wanted also to have Frances maybe on screen, or if she's still following us. But you are celebrating. Can you please share a little bit about this, just in a
Uh,
nutshell? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, for me, every day is Hispanic Heritage Month
Yes.
day, but each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15 to October 15 by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors, um, came here and have done amazing things. Even to this day, there's all these Latinos doing amazing things for our society here in the United States. We celebrate in different ways. For example, the last couple of years, I host a Hispanic Heritage Instagram live series where I highlight Latina moms, entrepreneurs from Latin American country that have created a business in the United States, like Peru, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Venezuela, for example. People are encouraged to support Latino-owned businesses like restaurants, stores, book stores, also books by Latinx authors, small shops. Many of us encourage parents to go to their local libraries and or local bookstores and ask for these books, for example. And I wanted to point something out. According to a recent article in the Diario Las Américas paper, Hispanic Latinos represent 19% of the U.S. population, 5 million companies, and 3.2 billion of the national gross domestic product here in the United States. That means we are key contributors to the economic growth and the wealth of our country. So we should definitely celebrate that.
Absolutely. Yes. You rounded it up very nicely. I'm following you on Instagram. I would like to also invite everyone else to have a look at Mari's Instagram account, Latina Boomer Mom, as you can see under her name on screen, and to follow her and to listen to the different Instagram lives. They are really very, very interesting, and I learned so much from you. And I would like now to know actually what is next, your next project.
And yes, thank you so much. And I wanted to say that I do this Instagram lives in English and in Spanish because I have many Spanish-speaking families in different countries like Colombia, Mexico, Puerto Rico that are raising their kids with English. So I want to be, cater to both communities and be helpful and supportive to both. I have a bilingual children's book coming out in the fall of 2025, right around this time. We are going to announce it at the beginning of the year. I was hoping that we could announce it earlier, but I've been told shush. So anyway, but the last 9 months, I kind of went on a sabbatical. I think I mentioned it to you, Ute. And I've been writing manuscripts for children's books. Perhaps they're going to be bilingual or Spanish English. I wrote a few in Spanish only, and I have many more in English. But my goal has been to sign up with a literary agent by the end of this year. So I needed to have a portfolio of work. And I decided to do that this year. So it's been quite interesting finding the time to write, plus still creating content for the Latino parents raising bilingual and multilingual and multicultural kids. But it's getting done, and hopefully by the end of I have 9 manuscripts right now, and I started another one last night, so I'm going to have 12 hopefully by the end of the year.
Absolutely. You're just, how do you do that? You have one child, you have 2
I
child,
don't know.
like everyone else, but yeah, you're multi-potentialite, right? This is a term, it's a thing. Thank you so much. I would like to just quickly share what Franklin said. Raising multicultural children is a long project, like Marie said before as well. Yes, absolutely. For me, is the way to give them my culture, not only my language, absolutely, and so much more. The feeling, right, to it. We cannot describe the feeling and not quantify it, and we cannot, yeah. And he was also saying solidarity and building a community. That was one of the things. Francis was congratulating you for your projects, and I know that I imagine that she knows what you're talking about.
She
And
knows.
also Michelle,
She's read some of my manuscripts and have given me great feedback.
Absolutely great. And Michelle again said, amazing, congrats. Michelle also has a huge, great project. Maybe, Michelle, you can just share a link in the comments about this. That will stay, and I'm happy also to share it elsewhere, because she's producing books for children with the voice in the book. So you can listen to what the children are pointing at, for example. Mari, gracias. Thank you, merci, grazie. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to talk about what it means for our children and also us, for the children to grow up and for us to raise them abroad. and how we can best help and support them embrace their multiple cultures and languages. Thank you also to all those who follow this live, and for everyone who is going to watch the recording. Please share your thoughts, experiences, questions, and suggestions in the comments. I'm always looking forward to continue the conversation, and see you the next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
De rien, c'est un plaisir, comme tu dis.
Gracias.